Hello and welcome to this episode of DJ Force 10 in Conversation. This episode, my special guest is Don Jamieson. He is a stand-up comedian from the US of A. He has released albums on Metal Blade Records, comedy albums that is, and his current one, Denim and Laughter, which is out now. You can go stream that, download it, buy it, whichever way you get your music right now. But go check it out if you're into like heavy metal and you like your comedy and whatnot. Do it. And yes, that is a play on the Saxon album Denim and Leather, to sort of like segue into his now postponed tour. He was going to tour with Biff Byford, the front man from Saxon, doing a sort of a Q&A session with Biff on his Hard Knocks tour, which unfortunately has now been postponed, like I said. And but we managed to get him in on the show, and it was an absolutely fantastic chat, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Everyone stay safe in this pandemic outbreak that we're having as well. We do talk about it a little bit during the interview, but not too much. But I do have a forthcoming guest on the show who is actually based in Italy, and we do have a good chat about it. It is Master Boot Record, who's also released an album on Metal Blade as well, called Floppy Disk Overdrive, but that's an interview we'll sort of cover in the next episode, but it was quite fascinating. Coming soon, apart from the Master Boot Overdrive, I also have Randy Blythe from Lamb of God coming on the show. That was a nice surprise for me. Yeah, look out for that one. They got a new album coming out soon as well. I just want to do a couple of shout-outs, say thank you to the people who have been downloading and listening during this time. The Yes interview was fantastic with Alan White. And, the Sepultura one's really picked up as well. So I hope you guys are enjoying that, and I hope you guys enjoy this one. But just a couple of tips for this one. Just remember, guys, stay inside. I know it's tempting to go out and about and try and be social and stuff, but do try and stay inside and wash your hands. That seems to be the overall message from the sort of officials going with this current pandemic. And I hope this brings you a little bit of distraction from that. And I'm going early with this one. The radio show will also go out. We're going to play some Motorhead on that show and stuff like that. Sort of really get into it. But this one is Don Jamieson. So, yes, enjoy. Don Jamieson, thank you for doing this, first and foremost.
I'm stuck inside like most other people, so happy to talk to somebody. And even though we can't go out and do anything, luckily I've extended St. Patrick's Day indefinitely.
Ah, superb. Absolutely superb. I was just about to say, I'm a big fan of you. I lived in the States for a good sort of 5 years or so, and I really enjoyed watching that metal show.
Oh, cool! Thank you, man.
When it was on Vh1, me and my wife used to watch it all the time. And when this opportunity came up, I was like, "Holy shit! Yes, okay."
Well, cool. I'm glad I appreciate you spreading the word. And unfortunately, we weren't on anywhere in the UK or Europe, which sucked because there's so many great rockers over there. But that's part of the. Part of being on a small channel, we were actually on Vh1 Classic.
Yeah.
Not regular Vh1, which is the difference between hiring Stephen Baldwin and Alec Baldwin.
Yes. Excellent. You had a tour lined up until this whole thing happened with Biff Byford of Saxon, where you were going to interview him at the start of the show. You do a bit of a Q&A. I was just sort of curious. I know it's not sort of happening now. It's been postponed or cancelled. But how did that come about? I mean, I know Saxon had... they had a little bit of success in the States. I wouldn't say it was massive compared to what they had here, but how did that come about with you?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's people can now not see Biff and I in the UK and Germany, and Switzerland and Sweden and France and the Netherlands. But Biff came on. We interviewed him on that metal show. He and I just sort of hit it off. Saxon's always been one of my top 5 favorite bands. And he had given me his phone number and said to keep in touch, but it was one of those things where sort of like, I'm not going to bother the guy. The guy wrote friggin' Heavy Metal Thunder. What am I going to say? And then he just started contacting me, and we started a friendship. And a couple of years ago, they played in Philadelphia, near where I live here in America. And we were sitting having red wine, as one does with Biff when you're in his presence. And just joking around, I said, yeah, maybe I'll name my next comedy album Denim and Laughter. And he loved the idea. And so I did it. I stole all their artwork and made it Denim and Laughter, and took all the packaging and all that, and sort of made that the theme of the record. And obviously hoping that would be a good tie-in for our tour in April and May, but be that as it may, the record is out. And I always try to, with my comedy albums, I try to parody one of my favorite bands. So Saxon's always been one.
Yes. Yeah, no, that was going to bring it on to my next part. It was like, I got obviously sent that album from Metal Blade. And I love it. I have it on in the car quite often when the kids aren't in the car, but when I'm in the car. So, I was just because obviously I was going to link it to that with having the Denim and Laughter album cover and name. You seem to have a good sort of affinity with Saxon itself, and them being one of the sort of like wave of British heavy metal bands that are still going, for one. And that are still making, solid music. It was just seemed that because I didn't know, like, because I've interviewed other members of Saxon or former members of Saxon, and they never really talk about the state side of things. Although I think Crusader was their sort of breakthrough over there. I think was it Crusader?
Yeah, Crusader was a big album for them here. The early records, definitely Strong Arm of the Law, was fairly big over here. When the new wave of British heavy metal came over here, a lot of us got swept up in it, obviously including me. And, Denim and Leather is the first Saxon album. I had my grandmother go out and buy it for me. And, when she saw them all on the motorcycles on the back, she wasn't that excited to have spent her money on it, but that album still resonates with me. And I also figured too, if I use the exact same artwork for my album, if I go on tour with Biff, maybe a lot of people will think I'm just selling copies of Denim and Leather, and I'll get a bunch of extra sales that way.
The remaster and remix.
My first album was called Live and Hilarious, which was modeled after Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous. And at the same time, Louis C.K., who's a much bigger comedian than I am, had an album out called Hilarious. And a lot of people bought my album thinking it was Louis'. So I try to get sales whatever way I can.
Yeah, no, why not? I mean, I was just looking at the other albums you got. It was Hell Bent for Laughter.
Right.
And and Communication Breakdown.
Yeah, a little nod to Led Zeppelin there.
Yeah. So you have quite an affinity for that wave of British metal bands. Obviously, being in the States yourself, sort of you seem to have that connection with a lot of our sort of like metal heritage. Out of the sort of ones that you've what are your sort of like top British metal bands that you really like? Obviously, Saxon is one of them.
Motorhead, Saxon, Judas Priest. I mean, those to me, that's the trilogy of metal for me right there. Obviously Iron Maiden has been a big part of my life. So yeah, between British heavy metal and even British comedy, I mean, I was growing up, I always loved really absurd comedy, and the Brits were always the best at that, Monty Python. And then, later on, Lemmy actually turned me on to Derek and Clive. It's just incredible. So I always love the absurdity of a lot of British humor, and especially nowadays, because you have to be absurd in your comedy because the headlines are like almost read as if they're comedy bits at this point.
Yeah.
So you have to even take it up another notch, which, I do on this album. I talk about the politically correct world we live in. And the examples I give are, I make are so over the top and ridiculous because that's the only way you're going to, get it into people's heads.
Yeah, no, definitely. You do have to push that envelope. I like obviously growing up here in the UK and sort of having Python as our sort of like, what the comedy we grew up on, and there's obviously a lot of like sort of more sort of like sitcom in like, that we had over here, wartime ones and like department stores and stuff like that. Kind of like, well, you have those in the States as well, but it was, the comedy was always been, the ones I always sort of draw to are the ones that really do push the envelope and are sort of more sort of off the wall, if you will. And I always try and find that as well. I always love stand-up comedy. I used to run a sort of like a small stand-up night at a venue I used to work at, and I'd book like work in progress shows with like comedians that I'd sort of seen on TV as a kid and stuff like that, because it was one of those like, like an improv night kind of thing. So but I've always loved that sort of like absurd British humour. So one of the shows that I was part of booking was the guys from there was a show called Little Britain, and there's a guy called David Walliams and Matt Lucas, and in the actual like TV show they ended up making, it's all different characters, different like things like that, but their live show was absolutely bizarre. This was like before it was before they got the TV or had the TV show. They were a radio based show initially, and it was just like totally bizarre. And then watching them sort of skyrocket after that here, I mean, now one of them like acts in various movies, the other one's a children's author now, which is even more bizarre.
Well, hey, Keith Richards is a children's author too, so
that's true. That is true.
Nothing more bizarre than an ex-junkie writing children's books.
No,
but in America, Peter Arthur, what the frig's his name? Peter Dudley.
Dudley Moore.
Dudley Moore, sorry.
That's all right.
I'm combining him and Peter Cook.
You are, yes.
Dudley Moore in America is this beloved star from the movie Arthur.
Yeah.
I mean, even still to this day, if you mention his name in America, people, Arthur. So it's funny because was sort of known as this lovable movie actor here, and when Lemmy told me about Dudley and Clive and told me who they were, I was like, oh my God, that's Dudley Moore. That was, that made it even more appealing to me that I knew Dudley Moore as this movie dude, and he was, sort of this real counterculture, filthy, let's get stoned and improv a record comic. And I just love that about him. I even love that. I even love when Ricky Gervais comes to this country and he hosts, these big award shows, and he just, as you guys say, takes the piss out of our liberal Hollywood douchebags that we have. And it's the greatest thing ever because they're so pathetic that they know, like, they hate him, but they know that there's no ratings unless they have him open the show. So they just feed on themselves. So I just love, pointing out all that hypocrisy in our society of what people do and what people say and, kind of what phonies they can be. And, it's just like, I just tell it like it is, man. I got no time to dick around. I'm the guy. That's me. I'm the same guy off stage as I am on stage. I like to scream and yell about stuff. And, I'm certainly nowhere in the Hollywood business at all. And I kind of love it that way. I'm more identified with the working class.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's good. That's the kind of like that's the comedy I kind of like to watch. I don't like. I mean, there are some comedians that I've gone to see in like big arenas, and it's bizarre seeing a stand-up comedian for one in a huge arena. Like, I mean, it works to a certain degree if you've got like generic jokes that kind of span. Whatever demographic you have in there, like non-offensive, jokes. Because we've got a few comedians here that are well, people would class them as offensive in some cases, but you know, you go back to like the Peter Cook and things like that. There's another guy I don't know if you've heard of called Chris Morris.
Okay, not familiar with him.
He did an album with Peter Cook, and it's basically them improving like these characters, and it's very cerebral. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
There must have been something smoked or taken or something before. But Chris Morris went on to he's made these other sort of comedy albums or like radio shows and TV shows, and he's definitely pushed the envelope. It takes like the modern culture and even twists it even further, like into the absurd. He's had like short runs of TV shows. He got into a lot of hot water with one of them. He even wrote his own obituary in one of our newspapers here, and then moved to France for a bit to let it die down.
Wow!
But he's come back. He's made a couple of movies as well. He's done, I think, one called Four Lions, which is basically about suicide bombers in London.
Always hysterical.
Yeah. It's just like watching these guys go through that process and like trying to do what they're going to do. But it's if you ever get a chance to see it, I think it might be on the streaming services, but it's like it's brilliant. And his other TV shows that he did as well, you might appreciate if you like that, like kind of absurdity. But there was one called Brass Eye.
Okay.
And it's basically a sort of it's a news show. So it's done like this guy presenting, this Chris Morris presenting the news and doing like featurettes and stuff like that within it. But it's about like, there's an episode on drugs, there's an episode on animals, there's an episode on sex, there's episodes on various other things, and then he did one on paedophilia.
All right.
And that's the one that got him in like deep water. But he like if you go back and watch those shows, you'll see some of the sort of like big actors of now, like Simon Pegg's in there,
sure.
And things like that, because obviously he came through that sort of circuit of like sitcoms and whatnot. But yeah, if you go back, check out his the album he did with Peter Cook. I'm sure you can download it from somewhere. It's like one of the BBC shows. But
yeah, I'll definitely find it somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's really good. So if you can, yeah, if you like to sort of that absurd stuff, it still lives on. You just got to find it now. So
yeah, I like the comics who, you know, like in America, again, I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with Bob Saget, but
yeah.
You know, if Full House airs over there, then you know, in America, Bob Saget is known as America's dad, literally.
Yeah.
He's America's dad. Everyone grew up with Danny Tanner, which was the character, and it's the most wholesome show. Then he went on to host America's Funniest Home Videos, which is, you know, basically kids hitting their dad in the nuts with a wiffle ball bat, and they put a funny sound effect on it. Again, all family humor. Meanwhile, the guy was on stage every night in Los Angeles, just filthy every night, and it was the worst kept secret in show business, but most people don't hang out in comedy clubs in Los Angeles. So he, you know, when I finally went after Full House went off and he started doing a lot more stand up on the road, I opened for him a bunch of times, and man, there would always be like a mother with her 3 daughters in the front row. And, you know, if they were horrified by me, they were just completely have every hope and dream crushed by seeing America's dad just go up and, you know, start talking about having sex with the Olsen twins and, you know, and just his real off-color stuff. And he would always ask me, he'd say, okay, who in the crowd, you know, isn't getting it? And I'd say, okay, I'd tell him, you know, table to the left, mother and 2 daughters, or this table over here. And it was just so funny because everyone knew him one way, but yet as a comedian, he was always filthy dirty. So I love that about him.
Yeah, that's quite I'd heard about that. I'd not seen any of his like stand up. I'd seen snippets, but not any of the like dirty stuff, if you will. So, but no, that's amazing. That was yeah, no, I was just sort of aware he was a stand up at the same time, but I didn't realize he went to those like that length and sort of took himself like out of that sort of scenario. Because I mean, obviously, it's a good way of like venting, I guess, as well. I've never done stand up, but
But the anomaly was that he became America's dad. He was always a filthy comic.
Yeah.
Like Red Fox with Sanford and Son. Most people loved that character, Fred Sanford, from the 70s sitcom. But when he was played in Las Vegas in the nightclubs, he was filthy. A lot of comedians were that way. There were, Martin Lawrence, was an American comedian who had a big TV show here in America, filthy comic, but beautiful mainstream career. So it's possible. And now in this day and age, obviously you have to be able to adapt somewhat, because you just can't go out and not care at all, because you don't want to lose your crowd. And, I'm still building mine. So I don't want to put people off necessarily, but I also want to be able to. So I think you can be more clever now, that you can say what you want to say, get the same kind of laugh, but also give the middle finger to the bizarre world that we live in now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now it's kind of like we've gone through, or going through, the sort of, treading on eggshells stage again, where we're kind of like, we can't say that, but can we say this? We're second guessing ourselves on a lot of topics. And some for good reasons, some for very silly reasons, but it's, you need to have that element. You need to be able to laugh at yourself. You need to be able to, have fun with everything, I think. Because otherwise you just take everything far too seriously, and, it kind of, I don't know, it doesn't make, you limit yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, also, you're just living a miserable freaking life. I mean, you got these celebrities in Hollywood. You got Alyssa Milano and Bette Midler and Kathy Griffin, all with their fingers on their phone on Twitter, waiting to be outraged about something so that they can tweet something. I'm so angry about this, and look why. Live your life already. Who cares? A joke's a joke. It's like, I can't even, everybody's one press of a button away from having their career ended instantly. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the age we're in, because now you can't just make a mistake. Now they have to take everything away from you. Your career has to be gone. Your family has to leave you. They have to take your home. They have to shoot your puppy. It's, these are the tolerant, people who, want everybody to their whole life to be destroyed over a tweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even something that was said 5 years ago. Someone is going through your feed looking for that one tweet to be outraged by. And someone said, if depending, because a lot of, I think we had an incident here. I think it was a professional soccer player, a young one, and he had tweeted something when he was like 14 or 15, and he got hell for it. Like it was like he almost lost his contract. He almost lost, sponsorship. He almost lost, for something that he said when he was, 14 years old, not really kind of like educated, or didn't realize the impact of at the time. I think, he got through it, but at the same time, like the news outlets were just like hounding and everything. And I was like, he was a kid.
No, it's true. It's you get in these situations where, people want to tear you down for one thing, and God forbid, the language changes every 3 days. So, you never know exactly what you could say anymore. And, until the outrage mob starts coming after you and you go, oh, I guess I shouldn't have said that. But, yeah, man, it's just got to the point of where, like I said, I'm not going to let that shut down what I do, but I'm going to just, I'm going to out clever them. I'm going to try to do stuff where, I'm going to say what I want to say, and I'm going to, give them the middle finger at the same time. So in a sense, it's made hopefully my comedy and a bunch of other comedians a lot stronger in terms of there's more layers to what we do now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So back on your sort of comedy albums and stuff. How did the relationship with Metal Blade come on? Because obviously, really, they're not known for releasing their comedy albums.
Yeah.
On that front, but how did that relationship come on? Did you? I know you've had Brian on your shows.
Brian Slagle.
Yeah.
Owns Metal Blade, right?
Yeah. So I was just curious, did the relationship happen through that? Was it just the connections that you had through the bands? What was the sort of like, because like I said, Metal Blade, you sort of, the bands that come out of that, but them releasing comedy albums, that must be, I don't know, you're the only one on there that does that, so.
There's a couple of us on there, but I was the first comedian signed to Metal Blade, and this all kind of ties into what we're just saying about, censorship and people getting outraged. I knew Metal Blade would be a great home for me because, when you have bands like Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be censoring any of my material.
No, definitely.
When you have an album, put out albums called Hammer, songs called Hammer, Smash Face, and I Come Blood, I'm pretty sure my free speech is going to be respected. And of course, hard rock and metal are such a big part of my life. So that was sort of the perfect collision of two worlds for me there. And much like my conversation with Biff, the record deal with Metal Blade came over drinking some red wine. So it seems like drinking red wine and stealing people's artwork from their albums has worked for me.
It definitely sounds like it, doesn't it? It must be something in that wine. I don't know. So I mean, you don't get many. We don't see it so much here, but many comedy albums being released anymore. You see obviously a lot of like everyone's got like kind of a Netflix special or a Hulu special or whatever thing, like outlet like that. But like, how do you find releasing comedy albums compared to like I'm not sure, like compared to the TV show, I suppose?
Well, I think for me it's always been about control and ownership of my stuff. So I always prefer to do things my way. And so I never really thought about, I'm not a good guy to mold into a certain situation. Let's put it that way. So for me, it's always been about, let me do things my way. And then if people catch on to it, that's going to be way more satisfying than to sort of be dictated to about, how things are going to go or whatever. And no offense to all the comics who, are doing great things out there, because I'm still a huge comedy fan. There's a million great comics out there now who have great specials out. Now, they should all quit because, I need to work. But while they're still here, they are good and they are funny. But for me, I guess I always loved that connection with Metal Blade, doing my records with them and not having to worry about dealing with people in suits sort of telling me how things should be done. My new record I literally did in front of 40 fans in a speakeasy in Los Angeles, an illegal club that, full bar, stage, sound system, it's a nightclub. Yeah. But Los Angeles County does not know about it. And I love the idea of doing it that way because, like rock and roll, comedy should always be dangerous. So I thought, what a great position to be in to do stand up in a place that could be raided by the cops at any moment. Yeah. And then on top of that, it was the vibe I wanted to set. Nobody was setting the tone for me. So I don't know, I've kind of always been a DIY kind of guy. And for me, it's worked the best because then I'm always satisfied by the stuff that I put out. Excellent. So how did you like you said before, you don't like kind of, I guess, being told what to do. How did you find that on the sort of like TV side of things? Well, listen, when you're making a paycheck from a TV network, you have to play the game a little bit, which I'm willing to do, because that was not my thing, my thing just on my own. I had two other co-hosts with me, and it was an interview show. For people who don't know that metal show, it was a hard rock and heavy metal talk show, and obviously we had everybody from Brian Johnson from AC/DC, Lemmy, Biff from Saxon, Sammy Hagar, Dave Mustaine, Marilyn Manson. I mean, you name them, we had them on the show. So, that wasn't a situation where, it was a showcase for me personally.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I was doing a TV show about this music that I've loved since I'm a kid, with two of my best friends, and I'm getting paid for it. So God bless America.
Yeah, damn right. Excellent. No, I used to love that. I love the sort of like the riff bit where you go into a commercial and you had that random guitarist, oh God, what's his name? The Duke. Damn it.
Oh, Rich Ward.
That's it, Rich Ward. What? I should know that. I've had him on my show before. So, but no, I used to love the format of the show. It seemed quite relaxed and everything. I was, who was your favourite to interview? Because you had so many people on there. And I always loved seeing, like Rob Zombie and Zakk Wylde and all that, like, on there. Were there any particular favourites of yours that you were like, oh fuck, he's on my show,
Well, pretty much everybody, these are all people that I grew up, who were heroes of mine. But again, the easy answer is Lemmy, because Lemmy's my hero of all time.
Yeah.
If he just sat there and smoked and didn't say a word the whole time, that would be the greatest show to me. So, always loved when Lemmy came on the show. Alice Cooper always came ready to go. Always had brilliant stories. Never told the same story twice. He showed up on it by himself, with a book.
Yeah.
Come with a whole posse. Brian Johnson, same thing. He rolled in by himself, looking like he just was about to go on stage with AC/DC, jeans, black T-shirt, cabbie hat, and. But I guess for the guys to make a television show, you love the people who are outspoken, right? So, guys like Dave Mustaine, guys like Phil Anselmo from Pantera, and of course Ted Nugent. These are guys who, whether you love them or hate them, you're going to tune in to see what the hell they're going to say, because you never know. And so you had to tune in. Okay, I hate Ted Nugent. What time does that show come on? Yeah. You have to watch.
Yeah, no, definitely. Certainly a live wire, that one, isn't he?
For sure.
So what are you doing now? Obviously, apart from this tour that got cancelled, what sort of things are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, don't worry. I mean, it's not just the tour that's canceled. It's all my gigs have been canceled. So I'm busy trying to rebook those. But in the meantime, I do a very similar show. I do that Jamieson Show on a streaming service called Compound Media.
Okay.
And it's kind of a nod to what I did on that metal show. I broaden it out a little bit. I include comedians, and sometimes we do a little sports. So a bit of a guy's show.
Cool.
But people could check out compoundmedia.com. That Jamieson Show, once again, me stealing a logo. And somebody else's idea for my own.
Nice.
And I'm interviewing, rock guys on there and bands and other people. So that's what I'm doing right now. And like I said, just, out promoting the album. And, I'm sad I'm not coming over your way. I was looking forward to, because I was going to do, some stand-up on the show with Biff. And then he and I having a sort of a talk show format kind of segment of the show, and then his band to play live. But hopefully we can work something out when all this panic and end of the world stuff ends.
Yes, definitely. No, I was actually going to go to one of the shows as well, so I was like kind of looking forward to it. But yeah, no, I hope you guys get it rebooked and everything. And I'm going to give your show a listen, actually. I've just written that down on my notepad.
Yeah, it's a video cast, so you can, hop on and we have a whole, big set and everything. So, actually, speaking of Ted Nugent, next week he's calling into the show. So,
oh, fantastic!
It's an hour-long thing, but yeah, and you could also listen to it as a podcast as well if you don't want to look at me.
Well, we'll see what my computer allows me to do. So,
yeah.
Cool. Well, I've got a couple of questions left for you, and I can let you get off and get on with the rest of your, I guess, isolation. If that's what we're to at the moment. I think we all are at the moment. My kids are just schools have just been closed and everything here, so
oh wow,
we're kind of like getting to that point. But yeah, I've got, like I said, I've got a couple of questions left for you. I know you already named your sort of like your top British metal bands, but I was going to ask you to name your top 3 albums, not necessarily by British metal bands, by sort of anyone, but the kind of ones that kind of define who you are, like the ones you grew up on and influenced you.
Yeah, so the first one's easy. It's Kiss Destroyer, because it's the first hard rock record I ever got in my life, you know, and when you're 11 years old and you pick up this album and they're rock stars, they're superheroes, they're comic book heroes. I mean, there's nothing better in the world when you're 11 than that.
No, they are the like ultimate gateway metal band, aren't they? Rock band.
Well, they ruined me for a long time, because it was like, well, if nobody, like, I didn't think anybody could ever stack up to them. It was like, wow, this is what it should be. This is the gold standard. But then slowly, obviously, I started to get into other bands. So I'd probably say, for me, the first time I actually probably listened to heavy metal was, the Iron Maiden Killers would be my real introduction to heavy metal. I walked into a record store back when they used to have those, and I picked up the vinyl, and I saw the cover, and I said, I don't even know what this sounds like, but I must have it. Yeah. And so, I bought that, and that was, boom, I was on my way with that. And then probably, I'd probably say, like, Motorhead, Bomber.
Nice.
Because, again, Lemmy being my hero, and, for me, picking up that album in the time where kind of a lot of the pretty boy bands were getting popular.
Yeah.
And to see these 3 ugly dudes on the back cover, nice. I was so excited, because I wasn't into the pretty bands. I wanted the bands to be ugly. And Motorhead were ugly and awesome and beautiful because of it.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, I was saying, speaking of Motorhead, I don't know if you've heard Phil Campbell's latest album. He was the guitarist in Motorhead for a while.
Yeah, I just hung with Phil and his sons on the Megadeth cruise.
Nice. Yeah. No, I saw them live with Ugly Kid Joe about a year or so back. They did a tour. Turned out I knew the singer from a previous life, so that was good. The one that actually isn't the son, which is fun as well. But no, I was just wondering if you heard it, because I really enjoyed his Old Lions Still Raw album, and obviously Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons.
Both of those albums are fantastic albums, and I got a chance to hang with Phil and his kids a bunch, and I told him, I said, you know how much I loved Lemmy, and I know how much Phil loved Lemmy. I mean, there's a beautiful song on that album that is all about how much he misses Lemmy.
Yeah.
That I defy anybody to keep a dry eye. So I just said, hey, thank you for continuing on with music, because you're all we have, Motorhead fans, to connect and, still to Motorhead in terms of the music. Obviously, Mickey D is off doing Scorpions, which is awesome, but Phil's really kind of still holding that torch, and he's playing with his 3 kids who are all friggin' awesome. Yeah. And he's really loving life. So I hope he continues on, and he's he's healthy, and he's sober, and Although I do miss the crazy Phil Campbell very much. I don't think he's putting on ballerina outfits after shows anymore. But as long as he's playing that guitar the way he can, I'll take him any way I can get him.
Excellent. No, it was a fact. Like it totally blew me away when I saw them, because I heard the album. I thought, oh, that's good. I saw them live, and it was just amazing. And then they started playing some Motorhead songs and getting like Wes Crane. Is it Wes Crane?
Whitfield Crane.
Whitfield Crane, that's it. I should get my names right. Like coming on and doing vocals, and like Born to Raise Hell and stuff. And I was just like, this is fucking awesome. And it was a tiny venue as well. So,
yeah. Well, that was the other thing. I hope, Phil was going to come out to one of the Biff shows. And yeah, I mean, those guys from Motorhead really, they mean a lot to me, man. They got me through a lot of stuff. And, people ask me about, sticking around in comedy for 20 plus years. And I go, hey, listen, it comes down to one Motorhead song. Don't let them grind you down. That's, anytime I've had a crappy set and I've come home and I'm, kicking the furniture and pissed off at the world, it's like, all right, Lemmy stuck in. He hung in there the whole time. He never gave up. Don't let them bastards grind you down.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I gotta say, Motorhead for me, they were the first band that I saw as a kid that got me into heavy music. I saw them on a TV show here called The Young Ones.
Yeah, of course. That's a famous one with Ace of Spades where they played.
Yeah, and I remember that episode perfectly, because it's like, I know the situation, like they were going on University Challenge, which is a game show here for like university kids, and I loved that show. But when they had them on there, that was the first time I was exposed to like fast, heavy music. I grew up in a household of predominantly, say, pop music, so Beatles, like general sort of like pop music of the time. But that was the first time. That was like the one band that has turned my head. And like from there, I went on to Iron Maiden, Guns N' Roses, and all that bands up until all the bands that are around today as well, because I still love finding new bands. But yeah, no, it's just say Motorhead for me is just one of those, like, it's just the center pillar in my sort of like musical, like, influence, if you will.
Yeah.
Because I don't think if hadn't seen them, I don't think I would be into the sort of style of music I'm into now. So, yeah, no, I was just reiterating that the Motorhead are they were an amazing band. So cool. So,
that'll be my next comedy album. We'll find a way to do a tribute to Motorhead on the next one. But
I'll do it.
As always, keep rock and roll dangerous, keep comedy dangerous. And dude, I really appreciate the support, and hopefully I get over the pond as soon as, like I said, the end of the world.
Yeah.
This stuff ends.
Once we've been saved.
Yes.
Cool. I've got one last question, and then I can let you go. What do you do away from comedy? What are your hobbies? What do you do to sort of like unwind or escape from?
Oh boy, I'm big into sports. So I go to a lot of sporting events. I love baseball and basketball and hockey and football. So usually when I go on the road, I look up the sports schedule in every town that I go to, and if I can get to a daytime game, or if we have an off day on the road, go out and see a sport at night. So yeah, usually that, or really just listen to music and beer.
Hey, nice.
Yeah,
cool. So no, I was good. I used to love going to baseball games when I was in the States. It was just one of those, like, obviously we have sporting events here, but I was based down in Tampa. So we had the Rays.
Yeah.
Not the greatest baseball team in the world, but their ground is under a dome. So it was air conditioned, so it was quite convenient.
And also beer.
Yeah, it's beer too.
which is a very crucial part of the baseball experience.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so that's I do that, and in the summer here, I live by the beach here in New Jersey, and I ride my bike up and down the beach, and but my fun comes from my work, so I prefer to be out doing what I do, and so right now is definitely a challenging time, but again, I appreciate the conversation and the support, and cool. I hope everybody's safe and healthy.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Well, I'll let you get on. And again, thank you for doing this. Like I say, I'm a big fan. I've been absolutely fantastic speaking to you. Once we're out of this, whatever the hell this is, we'll try and, I want to see you come over here and get that tour with Biff going again.
Let's get it done.
Cool. Thank you, mate. Have a good rest of your day, all right?
You too, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.